I never thought love could feel like drowning until I met Daniel. He had this way of looking at me, all charming smiles and whispered promises, that made me believe I was the only person in the world he cared about. I gave him everything, my trust, my time, my dreams, without question. And yet, somewhere along the way, I forgot to give any of that to myself. It started small, little lies I brushed off. "I'm at work late," he'd say, but his friends would spot him at some party I wasn't invited to. "I didn't hear from you all day," I'd whisper when he didn't answer my messages. "I was busy," he'd reply, with that easy grin that made me feel guilty for even asking. Lila saw it before I did. "Sonia, you can't ignore it forever," she said one rainy afternoon as we huddled in my tiny apartment watching water drip down the window. "He's hiding something. I can feel it. You deserve better than being strung along." "I know," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe in the future we were supposed to have. I wanted to believe that he loved me. But that night, everything changed. I walked into the little cafe where we usually met after work, heart fluttering like a bird trapped in my chest, only to freeze mid-step. Daniel wasn't alone. He was sitting across from a woman I didn't know, laughing. Her hand brushed his casually, like they had been doing it for years. And the worst part, he looked up, saw me, and that charming smile didn't falter. Not for a second. I felt the room spin. I wanted to run, to scream, to throw my coffee at him, but I stayed, frozen by disbelief. "Hey, babe," he said, waving casually. The word babe was a knife. I could feel it twist in my chest. The woman looked at me with that smug, confident smile. My stomach lurched, bile rising as if my body knew before my mind could process it. I couldn't speak. Words failed me. My best friend's warning echoed in my head. "You deserve better." But the betrayal felt like it had carved a hollow space inside me. What is she doing here?" I finally managed, voice trembling. Daniel's grin didn't falter. "She's a friend, work stuff." I laughed bitterly, a sound I didn't recognize. Work stuff, at a cafe, in the middle of the evening. The woman smirked. Daniel's eyes flickered with irritation just for a moment, before he leaned back and shrugged. "Look, Sonia, it's not a big deal. Don't overthink it." Not a big deal. As if my heart breaking into pieces was nothing. I wanted to throw my hands up and leave, but instead I sat down, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed. I tried to remember every time I'd ignored my gut, every time I'd excused him, and now it didn't matter. He had chosen her, or maybe he had chosen not to choose me. After what felt like hours, I finally stood. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to walk toward the door. "I can't do this," I said, voice barely audible. "Wait, Sonia, come on," he started, but I didn't look back. His words were just noise, background static to the scream of my heart breaking. Outside, the rain had turned the street into a mirror, reflecting my tears, my shame, my heartbreak. Lila's words returned. "You deserve better." But how could I believe that when my entire world felt shattered? For the first time in years, I felt utterly alone. Not because I was physically alone. Lila was still there. But because the person I loved most had chosen someone else over me. Betrayal isn't just in the act. It's in the subtle erasure of your worth, in the way someone you trusted can make you question your own value. And as I walked home, soaked to the bone, shivering for more than the cold, I realized something I had refused to admit for far too long. I had allowed myself to be small for someone else. I had allowed someone else's lies and charm to define my happiness. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, eyes red and swollen. Who am I, if not the girl he loved? I whispered. The answer didn't come, but I knew one thing. This wasn't the end. Somehow, some way, I would survive. I would rise. I would be stronger than I ever imagined. But for now, I let myself cry. And somewhere deep in my chest, buried beneath the hurt, a tiny spark of resolve flickered. Not revenge, not yet. But one day, I would be the one who smiled while he realized he had lost me forever. I didn't think it could get worse than seeing him with her, but life has a way of proving you wrong. The next morning, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, hoping it wasn't him. And yet, part of me, stupid, stubborn, hopeful me, wanted him to reach out, to say it was all a misunderstanding. He did. "Hey, can we talk?" His text read. Simple, casual, as if nothing had happened. My fingers trembled as I typed back. No, not today. But my mind didn't stop racing. I knew I had to see him. Eventually. The life I thought we shared was broken, but closure, or confrontation, I needed it. Later that evening, I found myself at his apartment, heart hammering like it wanted to escape my chest. Daniel opened the door with that same infuriating grin, the one that used to make me melt. "Sonia, you look tired," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." I didn't. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, trying to hold my ground. "Daniel, why? Why her?" My voice broke halfway through, raw and trembling. He shrugged, as if shrugging could erase the pain. "She's just someone I spend time with. You know how it is." I felt my chest tighten, anger rising like a tidal wave. "Do you think I'm stupid? I saw you at the cafe, laughing, touching her hand. Don't lie to me, Daniel. Don't even try." His eyes flickered, annoyance briefly breaking through. "Sonia, it's not what you think." "Not what I think?" I shouted, my voice echoing in his tiny apartment. "I saw it. I trusted you. I gave you everything, Daniel, and you threw it away for her." He stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. I recoiled. Don't touch me. How could you? How could you betray me like this after everything?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. I'm sorry. Okay, I messed up. But you have to understand, Sonia. No, you don't get to tell me to understand. You don't get to twist this into your story. I trusted you. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him feel even a fraction of what I felt. He softened, trying to use that manipulative charm he always used. "Look, I care about you. I really do. But things just happened. I didn't plan it. You have to see my side." "No, Daniel, I don't care about your side. I cared about you. I believed in us. And you cheated. That's all I need to know." For a long moment, he said nothing. I could see the flicker of guilt, or was it irritation, in his eyes. But the man I loved, or thought I loved, was gone. All that remained was someone who couldn't be trusted, someone whose words no longer held meaning. I turned to leave, my chest tight, legs trembling. He called after me. Sonia, wait, please. I didn't. Not this time. Not after everything. Outside, the city lights blurred through my tears. I walked without a direction, just letting my feet carry me away from him, away from the life I thought I had. My phone buzzed again. Daniel, I'm sorry. I I didn't answer. I couldn't. When I finally reached my apartment, I collapsed on the floor, hugging my knees. I had known heartbreak before, but this was something else, something deeper, sharper. I felt betrayed not just by him, but by my own judgment, my own naivete. How could I have been so blind? Leela called later, worried. Sonia, are you okay? I tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. No, no, I'm not. He, he cheated. Right in front of me. There was silence on the other end, heavy and sympathetic. I told you, Sonia, you deserve better. You will be better. I didn't argue. I just let her words sink in. Somewhere deep down, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was a life beyond this heartbreak, but the thought of facing tomorrow, alone, was terrifying. Sleep didn't come. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every smile, every lie, every touch. My life had been a lie, I realized. Not his fault entirely. He was who he was, but mine too. I had trusted too much, given too much, and ignored the signs. And yet, somewhere in the storm of my heartbreak, a seed of resolve begun to grow. This wasn't the end of me. It couldn't be. I couldn't let Daniel's betrayal define my life. I would survive. I would rise, and one day, he would see what he lost. But that day wasn't today. Tonight, I allowed myself to cry, to feel every jagged edge of betrayal, every sting of humiliation. Tomorrow, tomorrow I would start to think about how to pick up the pieces, and maybe, just maybe, start thinking about myself. The days after Daniel's betrayal felt endless. I went through the motions, work, errands, coffee runs, but everything was blurred, like I was watching life from behind a fogged-up window. Every street, every corner, every laugh I passed reminded me of him, and every time I thought I was okay, a memory would strike like a punch to the chest, his hand brushing mine, his voice whispering promises, the way he made me feel like I mattered, until I didn't. Lila came over one evening, carrying a bag of my favorite snacks and that ridiculous grin that always made me feel a little less heavy. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside me on the couch. "You've been hiding in here for days. Talk to me." I shook my head, staring at the floor. "I can't. I don't even know what to say anymore. Everything feels broken." "You're not broken, Sonia," she said firmly. "You're hurt, and hurt is temporary. It's painful, yeah, but it fades. You just have to let yourself heal. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself cry. But don't let him take you apart." Her words should have comforted me, but instead, I felt a hollow ache. How could I heal when every heartbeat reminded me of what I lost? How could I trust anyone again when the person I trusted most had destroyed me? I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm strong enough. He he made me feel like I'm nothing, like I'm worthless. "You're not nothing," Lila said, grabbing my hand. "He lost someone incredible, Don't let him win by breaking you completely. Her words lingered in my mind long after she left. I wanted to believe them, but believing felt like an impossible task. So I tried to distract myself. I buried myself in work, answering emails, finishing projects, pretending that being busy would erase the pain. That's when Ethan appeared. I met him a few weeks ago at the office. Quiet, steady, with a calm presence that somehow made chaos feel distant. I never noticed him much before, but now I couldn't stop noticing him. He checked in on me one afternoon, casually, with no pressure, no expectations. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "You okay? You seemed off lately." I blinked at him, surprised by his concern. I'm I'm fine, just tired, I guess. He gave me a small, understanding smile. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. No judgment, no advice, just listening." It was simple, and yet it felt like a lifeline. Someone willing to see me without expecting anything from me. No games, no lies, no betrayal. Over the next few days, he started leaving little things, like a cup of coffee on my desk, a sticky note with, "You're stronger than you think," or just checking in with a quiet, "How's your day?" I didn't realize how starved I was for kindness until I felt it from him. And yet, as I started leaning on him, a part of me felt guilty. Guilty for thinking of someone else while my heart still ached for Daniel. Guilty for feeling the faint stirrings of something more. One night, I found myself walking home alone, the cold biting at my skin. Ethan had stayed late at work, and Lila had gone home. I hugged my coat tighter around me, feeling the loneliness creep back. "I can't keep doing this," I whispered to myself, walking past the streetlights that flickered like distant stars. "I can't keep waiting for him, for anyone. I have to, I have to find me." And for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of determination, not for Daniel, not for Ethan, for me. I realized that maybe healing wouldn't be a straight path. Maybe some days I'd feel strong, and some days I'd feel broken all over again. But the important part was moving forward, even if it was just a small step each day. That night, I sat by my window, looking at the city lights, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself breathe. I allowed myself to hope that there could be more for me than heartbreak. And as I stared at the sky, I promised myself something. One day I would stand tall, proud, unshaken by the past. One day I would look at Daniel and feel nothing but the quiet satisfaction of knowing I survived. One day I would be loved for who I truly am. But for now, I was learning to be alone. I didn't wake up one morning fully healed. Healing didn't work like that. It was messy, slow, and full of setbacks. But I decided that if I couldn't change the past, I could at least control the future. So I started small. Work became my anchor. I poured myself into every project, every deadline, every presentation. It was exhausting, but it kept my mind from replaying Daniel's face, his lies, the way he made me feel disposable. And something unexpected happened. I began to see results. My boss, Mr. Hammond, noticed my dedication. "Sonia," he said one afternoon, sliding a folder across my desk, "I've been impressed with your work lately. I want you to take the lead on this new project." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with the spark of pride. "Me?" I asked, trying not to let my voice shake. "Yes, you. You've got the skill, the focus, and I trust you." It felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. For the first time in months, I felt capable, strong, worth something. Lila noticed it too. That evening, over tea in my kitchen, she grinned. "Look at you! You're glowing. I barely recognized the sad, broken girl from a few weeks ago." I laughed softly, feeling warmth creep into my chest. "I'm not fully there yet," I admitted. "I still think about him. I still hurt. But I feel like maybe I can, I don't know." I didn't mean to notice him, Ethan, like this. Really, I didn't. I was supposed to be focused on myself, my career, my healing. But there was something about him that pulled my attention, a quiet warmth that didn't demand anything and yet made me feel seen. It started small. A cup of coffee left on my desk with a note that read, "Hope your day's going well." Little gestures that made me smile even on days I didn't feel like smiling. I told myself it was just kindness. That's all, just kindness. One evening, as we stayed late at the office together, I caught him staring at me while I was absorbed in a spreadsheet. "What?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing," he said, but the corner of his mouth lifted. "You just concentrate really intensely. It's kind of impressive." I blinked at him, unsure how to respond. Uh, thanks, I guess." He chuckled softly, and I felt a flutter in my chest I hadn't felt in months, not since Daniel. We started talking more, cautiously at first. Small talk about work, movies, hobbies. But gradually, our conversations deepened. One night, we stayed late after everyone else had left the office. "You know," he said quietly, leaning against my desk, "I've noticed you've been different lately. Stronger. You don't let things get to you like you used to." I felt a strange mixture of pride and shame. "I'm trying," I admitted. It's it's hard, but I guess I have to try, right?" "You're doing more than trying," he said softly. "You're surviving, thriving even. It's inspiring." The word inspiring made heat rush to my cheeks. I looked down, fiddling with my pen. "I don't feel inspiring. I feel tired, sad, angry." He stepped closer, gentle but steady. That's okay. You can feel all of that and still be amazing. You don't have to hide it. Something in his eyes, honest, patient, kind, made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Not like Daniel's warmth, which always had a sting of manipulation beneath it. Ethan's warmth was steady, reliable, real. I found myself laughing more around him, letting my guard down just a little. And every time I did, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe I could trust someone again. Maybe I could care about someone again. But there was always the shadow of Daniel, the memory of his lies, his betrayals, the way he made me feel worthless. I hated that I even thought about him. I hated that a part of me still longed for what I knew I couldn't have. One Friday evening, Ethan invited me for coffee after work. I hesitated, caught between curiosity and fear. "Come on," he said with a grin. "I promise it's just coffee, no weird expectations." I laughed, feeling a little lighter than I had in months. "Okay, just coffee." We walked to a small cafe nearby, the city buzzing around us. But inside the little shop, it felt quiet, safe, like we'd entered our own little world. We talked about everything and nothing. Movies we hated, childhood memories, embarrassing work moments. I felt my chest relax for the first time in weeks. And when he reached across the table to hand me my coffee, our fingers brushed. A jolt ran through me. I pulled back slightly, embarrassed, but he just smiled, not making a big deal out of it. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Yeah, I'm fine, really." But inside, I was anything but fine. There was something stirring in me, something new, fragile, terrifying, attraction, curiosity. Something I hadn't allowed myself to feel since Daniel. That night, walking home, I replayed every moment with Ethan. I hated myself a little for thinking about him. I hated myself a little for smiling, but a bigger part of me was grateful. Grateful for the warmth, the kindness, the possibility that maybe not all men were like Daniel. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something. I was ready to let someone in again. Not fully, not yet, but maybe someday. For now, I could enjoy the little sparks, the small moments of connection that reminded me I was still capable of feeling joy, of trusting again, of being seen. And maybe, just maybe, I could start imagining a future where I wasn't defined by heartbreak, but by my strength, my choices, and yes, even love. But Daniel's shadow still lingered, a quiet reminder of the pain I'd endured. I would never forget him entirely. I would never fully erase the hurt. But the future didn't have to belong to him. And that realization felt electric. I thought I had escaped him. I thought Daniel was a memory, a shadow I could finally ignore. But life has a way of throwing your past back at you when you least expect it. It started with a message. Simple, unassuming, almost casual. "Can we talk?" My stomach twisted. I stared at my phone, heart pounding, mind screaming at me to delete it, block it, erase any trace of him from my life. But curiosity, that stupid, dangerous curiosity, made me hesitate. A week later, he showed up at my apartment, standing in the hallway like he owned the place. The same Daniel, the same charming grin, but with something different this time. Something like regret. "Sonia," he said softly, "I need to explain. Please." I froze. "Explain? Explain what? How you ruined my life?" My voice shook, anger and disbelief mingling together. I I made a mistake," he admitted, eyes downcast. "I was selfish. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about us. And I'm sorry." I laughed bitterly, a hollow, broken sound. "Sorry? You think a simple sorry will fix this? You think I'll just forgive you because you say it?" He flinched, but his voice stayed steady. "No, I don't expect forgiveness. I just, I wanted you to know I regret it. I wish I could take it back." The words should have meant something, but they didn't. They sounded empty, rehearsed, like a line from a bad movie. "You had your chance," I said, stepping closer. "You had everything, and you threw it away. Do you know what it's like to trust someone so completely, only to have them betray you, to feel worthless, discarded, like you meant nothing?" "I know," he whispered, but I could tell he didn't, not really. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at him. The man I loved, or thought I loved, stood in front of me, and I realized something important. I had changed. I wasn't that girl anymore. The one who would cry on the floor begging him to stay. The one who forgave too easily, trusted too blindly. "I'm not the same girl," I said finally, voice calm but firm. "You don't get to hurt me again. You don't get to manipulate me with your guilt." He flinched, but his voice stayed steady. "Sonia, I really am sorry. I I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see you. Not like this. I've moved on. Or at least, I'm trying to." And I was. I could feel it in my bones. The tiny spark of freedom, the sense of control over my own life. It was fragile, but it was mine. That night, I called Lila, needing her voice, her grounding presence. "Sheesh," she said when I told her about the encounter. "I don't even know why he thinks he can just stroll back in. You handled it like a queen." "I don't feel like a queen," I admitted, curling up on my couch. "I feel tired, angry, sad, but not broken, I guess. Not like before." "That's enough for now," she said softly. "You've survived him once. You'll survive him again. And one day you'll be happy, truly happy, without even thinking about him." I wanted to believe her. I tried. But Daniel wasn't gone. His presence lingered like a shadow. Every time I heard a notification, my heart jumped. Every time I passed a familiar street, I remembered our moments together. But then I thought about Ethan, about his quiet kindness, his steady support, about the small gestures that made me feel valued. And suddenly, Daniel's remorse seemed hollow, meaningless. He had chosen to hurt me, and no amount of words could erase that. "I can't let him back in," I whispered to myself. "Not ever." For the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity. The choice wasn't about forgiveness or revenge. It was about me, about my future, about what I wanted my life to be. And what I wanted was simple: peace, strength, and someone who truly cared without games or manipulation. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks without nightmares of betrayal. Daniel had tried to return, but I refused to let him. I had learned something crucial. The past could knock on your door, but it couldn't live in your home unless you invited it. And I wasn't inviting him. I woke up that morning with a strange feeling in my chest. Not fear, not heartbreak, not even sadness. It was clarity. Like I could finally see myself clearly, without the fog of Daniel's betrayal clouding every thought. I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone who didn't see my worth. I needed me. Lila noticed the change immediately. "You're glowing," she said over coffee at our favorite cafe. "Something's different." "I feel lighter," I admitted, stirring my cup absent-mindedly. I've spent so long thinking about what he did to me, about what I lost, and now I'm thinking about what I can have, about who I want to be. "That's the spirit," she said, smiling. "It's about time you stopped giving your power away." I nodded, feeling a fire ignite in my chest. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt alive. At work, I tackled my projects with new determination. No one could stop me. Not the past, not Daniel, not my own lingering doubts. I took the lead on challenging tasks, spoke up in meetings, and earned respect in ways I hadn't imagined. My colleagues began to notice the shift. "Wow, Sonia," Ethan said quietly one afternoon, handing me a stack of reports. "You've really changed. You're you're unstoppable." I smiled, warmth flooding my chest. "Thanks, Ethan. I'm learning." It wasn't just work. I started setting boundaries in every aspect of my life. Family, friends, even casual acquaintances. No more people-pleasing. No more sacrificing my happiness for someone else. If I didn't respect myself, no one else would. And then there was Daniel. I heard through mutual friends that he was struggling. His job was shaky, his relationships tense. People didn't respect him like they used to. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, a small taste of the karma that had been slowly catching up to him. But I surprised myself. I didn't care as much as I thought I would. Instead, I focused on myself. That evening, I met Ethan for dinner at a small restaurant nearby. It was casual, relaxed, and yet everything about him made my chest feel full. "You've changed," he said, studying me carefully. "Not just at work. You seem stronger, happier." I shrugged, trying to hide the warmth that spread in my chest. "I'm learning to be. It's not easy, but it feels good to finally feel like I'm in control." He reached across the table, brushing his hand lightly against mine. "I'm proud of you, really. You've come so far." The sincerity in his eyes made something in me loosen, the tight grip I'd held onto my heart for months. I smiled, feeling a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. And then, almost as if the universe wanted to test me, Daniel called. I let it ring once, twice, and then silence. No voicemail, no explanation. Just me, sitting at the restaurant with Ethan, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't known I could feel in his presence. He had returned, trying to manipulate me again, but I didn't even flinch. I had a choice now, and for the first time, I chose me. Later that night, I walked home alone, cold air brushing my face. I smiled despite myself. For the first time, I didn't feel fragile. I didn't feel broken. I felt empowered. I realized something crucial. Empowerment wasn't about revenge or about making Daniel suffer. It was about living fully, confidently, unapologetically, about reclaiming my life and refusing to let anyone else control it. And as I reached my apartment, I made a silent vow. No more doubts, no more heartbreak, no more wasted energy on people who didn't deserve it. I would live for me. I would love myself. I would strive for myself. And if Daniel wanted to watch, to regret, to realize what he had lost, that was on him. Because I was no longer waiting for him. I was moving forward. And nothing, no one, could stop me now. I thought I had seen the last of Daniel's manipulations. I thought I had left all the pain behind me. But life has a way of reminding you that closure isn't always clean. It started innocently enough, an offhand comment from a mutual friend during lunch. "Have you heard about Daniel?" she asked, voice hesitant. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. "No, what about him?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Just things aren't going well. At work, in his relationships, he's making mistakes. People are talking." I smiled faintly, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and indifference. Karma, it seemed, was quietly doing its work. But later that evening, as I sorted through some old papers, I found something that made my stomach twist. A series of emails, messages Daniel had sent to colleagues and friends, revealing lies, schemes, and attempts to manipulate his way out of consequences. I read them slowly, the betrayal settling in again, not toward me this time, but toward everyone around him. And then it hit me. I had escaped. I had moved forward while he was still trapped in his own web of lies. I called Leela immediately. "You won't believe what I just found," I said, voice trembling with a mix of anger and triumph. "What is it?" she asked, concern and curiosity lacing her tone. "Daniel, he's still lying, still scheming, but it's not affecting me anymore. I'm free, Leela, completely free." There was a pause on the other end before she said softly, "That's amazing, Sonia. Truly, you're finally in control." I hung up and sank into my chair, feeling a weight lift from my chest. All those months of pain, all that heartbreak had led me here, to a place where Daniel's actions no longer dictated my emotions. Ethan noticed it too. The next day at work, he smiled as he handed me a cup of coffee. "You seem lighter, happier. Did something happen?" I shook my head, smiling. No single thing, just clarity. And I realized something important. "What's that?" "That I don't need him. Not now, not ever. I've been carrying around his betrayal for months, letting it define me. But I don't anymore. I'm stronger than that." He reached out, brushing his hand lightly against mine. "You've changed, and I think it suits you." For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to truly smile. Not the fake, polite smile I'd worn around Daniel's presence, or even at work. This was real, genuine, me. That evening, I met Ethan for a quiet dinner. The restaurant was warm and cozy, with dim lighting that made the world feel softer. We talked about everything: our dreams, our struggles, small victories at work, and I realized in that moment how much I valued his presence. "You've been through a lot," he said gently, looking at me across the table. "But you've come out stronger. And I admire that. I admire you." I felt a flutter in my chest, one I hadn't felt since before Daniel. "Thank you, Ethan. It means a lot. More than I can say." He smiled, and I felt something shift inside me. For so long, I had associated love with pain, trust with betrayal. But here was someone patient, kind, and consistent. Someone who didn't expect anything, but allowed me to feel safe. As I walked home later that night, the cool night air brushing my face, I thought about Daniel. I thought about all the pain he had caused, all the nights I had cried, all the trust I had given that was thrown away. And I realized for the first time that I didn't care. Not really. I didn't need him to apologize, to regret, or to come crawling back. I didn't need him to recognize what he lost. I had already won. I had survived. I had grown. I had reclaimed myself. And that I thought with a quiet smile, was the ultimate revelation. I didn't need to check social media or ask around to know that Daniel's life was slowly unraveling. The universe has a funny way of balancing things. Word reached me through whispers from friends and colleagues. Jobs lost, relationships crumbling, friends abandoning him. And every time I heard a new detail, a small part of me felt satisfied. Not because I wanted to see him suffer, that wasn't who I was anymore, but because justice, slow and inevitable, had finally caught up. I sat with Leela one evening, recounting the latest news. He got fired from his job today, I said, stirring my tea. Apparently, his lies finally caught up with him. People found out about all the manipulations and, well, he's alone now. Good. You've endured so much, Sonia. Seeing him face consequences, even indirectly, must feel relieving. It does, I admitted, surprising myself. But it's not about revenge. I don't feel satisfaction from him hurting. I feel peaceful, like the world finally realigned itself, and I'm free to live my life without his shadow hanging over me. That night, I thought about the months I had spent mired in heartbreak, the crying, the sleepless nights, the endless replaying of Daniel's betrayal. And I realized something important. Those months weren't wasted. They had forged me into someone stronger, wiser, unshakable. Ethan noticed the difference too. He had become a steady presence in my life, not a replacement for Daniel, not a distraction, but a reminder that there were people who cared without conditions. "You're glowing," he said one evening, walking me home after a late dinner. The city lights flickered around us, making everything feel surreal. "I can see it in the way you carry yourself. You're at peace." "I am," I whispered, feeling the truth of it seep into me. Not completely, but closer than I've ever been, and it feels amazing. We stopped at a quiet corner and he looked at me with something I didn't expect. Gentleness, admiration, and maybe a little longing. "I'm glad I get to see this side of you, the real you. Strong, independent, alive." I smiled softly. "Thanks, Ethan. You've helped more than you know. Not by fixing me, but by just being there." His hand brushed mine, casual, reassuring. I felt a spark of warmth and possibility, a feeling I hadn't allowed myself to experience since Daniel. This wasn't about replacing my past. It was about embracing a future I deserved. The following weeks brought more news of Daniel's downfall. People who once admired him distanced themselves. He had no support, no allies, no one to manipulate. And I didn't gloat or celebrate, at least not openly, but I couldn't deny the sense of closure it gave me. The universe had done its work. Karma had done its work. And I had done mine. I had survived. I had grown. I had reclaimed myself. One afternoon, Ethan and I walked through a small park near our apartments. The air was crisp and leaves fell like golden rain around us. He glanced at me, smiling. "You know, you inspire me. The way you've handled everything, it's incredible." I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. But I guess I've learned one thing for sure. I don't need anyone to define my worth. Not him, not anyone. Ethan nodded, understanding. "And you're amazing because of that. Not in spite of the pain, but because you survived it and became stronger." We walked in silence for a while, just enjoying the peace and quiet. I realized how far I had come, from the girl who cried alone in her apartment, heartbroken and fragile, to the woman who could face her past without flinching and embrace the present without fear. By the time I returned home, I felt lighter than I had in years. The world felt bigger, brighter, and full of possibilities. Daniel's betrayal was behind me, karma had unfolded naturally, and I had survived everything life had thrown at me. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe freely. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the best was yet to come. I never thought I'd feel this way again. Not after Daniel, not after all the pain, all the betrayal, all the nights I spent crying myself to sleep. And yet, here I was, noticing Ethan in ways I hadn't noticed anyone in years. It started subtly. The way he smiled when he saw me, the way he listened so attentively, the little gestures that showed he genuinely cared. I found myself looking forward to our conversations, our walks, the casual moments that suddenly felt extraordinary. One evening, after a long day at work, he suggested we grab dinner. "Nothing fancy," he said, grinning, "just a quiet place where we can talk." I agreed, my heart fluttering for reasons I didn't fully understand. At the restaurant, we sat across from each other, talking about trivial things at first: movies, work, the latest office gossip. But soon, the conversation deepened. "You've really changed, Sonia," he said quietly, his gaze steady. "Not just in how you carry yourself, but in how you see the world. You're radiant." My cheeks flushed and I looked down at my hands, trying to hide the smile that threatened to spread across my face. "I've learned a lot about myself, about trust, about what I want." "And what do you want?" he asked softly, leaning slightly closer. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say, "I want you," but I wasn't ready to put that into words. Not yet. "I want peace," I said finally, "and happiness, and I think I'm starting to find both." He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that always made my chest tighten. "I hope you do, and I want to be part of that happiness, if you'll let me." Something in me stirred, a flutter, a spark, a hope I had buried long ago. I nodded slowly. "I'd like that." The rest of the evening passed in a comfortable silence, punctuated by laughter and easy conversation. I realized how rare it was to feel so safe with someone, to be able to let my guard down without fear of being hurt. Walking home later, our hands brushed. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let the contact linger, feeling warmth and connection spread through me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like love didn't have to hurt. Love could be gentle, kind, and real. Over the next few weeks, our connection deepened. We spent more time together, shared more moments, and I began to notice the small things: how he remembered my favorite coffee order, how he noticed when I was tired, how he always seemed to know when I needed a kind word. One evening, we sat on the rooftop of my apartment building, looking at the city lights. The night was quiet, peaceful, and I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't known I could feel. "Thank you for being here," I said softly, leaning slightly toward him. "For just being you." He took my hand gently. "I should be the one thanking you. You've shown me so much strength and kindness. I admire you, Sonia, truly." I looked into his eyes and felt something shift: trust, hope, affection, all mingling into a feeling I hadn't allowed myself in years. And I realized I was ready, ready to let someone in, ready to feel again, ready to love without fear. Ethan leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. You deserve to be loved fully and completely, he whispered. And for the first time since Daniel, I believed it. I smiled, feeling warmth fill my chest. I think I finally understand what that means. That night, as we walked back to our apartments hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace and excitement. Life had been painful, messy, and heartbreaking, but it had also been a teacher, guiding me to this moment, this chance at love that was real, honest, and gentle. And as I closed my apartment door behind me, I realized something profound. The past could no longer hold me. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the tears, they had shaped me, but they no longer defined me. I was free, I was strong, and I was ready to love again. The office was quiet that evening, bathed in the soft glow of city lights. I sat at my desk, the hum of computers and distant traffic providing a calm soundtrack to my thoughts. Everything had changed. My company, my life, even the woman I had become. And yet, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. Mara placed a cup of tea in front of me. "You've done it," she said softly, "not just professionally, emotionally too. You've reclaimed everything." I smiled faintly, sipping the tea. It wasn't just about business or revenge. It was about proving to myself that I could survive, that I could rise stronger, that I could take the ashes of betrayal and build something real, something lasting. She nodded. "And you did. Alex underestimated you, yes, but more importantly, you never underestimated yourself." I leaned back, letting the chair cradle me. I used to define myself by what others thought of me, by the people who tried to hurt me. But now, I define myself by my own strength, my resilience, my integrity. Mara looked thoughtful. "Do you ever feel empty? Like after all this, there's nothing left to fight for?" I shook my head. Not empty, fulfilled. I fought through the worst, faced the betrayal, and come out stronger. That journey, it was painful, yes, but it also taught me who I am and who I want to be. Ethan walked in quietly. He held a folder. He said, "I've been reviewing the growth projections. With the expansion complete and your leadership, Sonia, the company is set to dominate the market. And clients are raving about your approach, your strategy, your ethics." I smiled. "It's not just about dominating. It's about showing that strength and kindness, strategy and integrity can coexist. That we can succeed without cutting corners or hurting others unnecessarily." Ethan nodded. "You've transformed, Sonia. Not just professionally, personally too. You faced betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, and you didn't let it destroy you. You rose." I thought of Alex one last time, the man who had tried to take everything from me. He had crumbled quietly, learning too late that arrogance and selfishness never protect anyone from consequences. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to prove anything to him. The proof was already in my life, my work, and my heart. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of the journey settle. The woman who had once been vulnerable, broken, and lost was gone. In her place stood someone strong, self-assured, and unshakable. Mara's voice brought me back. "Are you ready to step back for a moment? Reflect and enjoy this." I opened my eyes, smiling. Yes, I've spent so long fighting, planning, surviving. I've earned a moment to just be, to enjoy what I've built, the people who supported me, and the life I've reclaimed. She placed a hand on mine. You've come a long way, Sonia. And this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something even greater. I nodded. I know. And I'm ready. Ready to grow, to lead, and to live fully. I survived betrayal. I survived heartbreak, and I emerged stronger. That's my victory. That's my life. Later, alone in the office, I looked out at the city skyline. The lights shimmered like tiny stars, a reflection of all the lives, dreams, and possibilities ahead. I whispered, almost to myself, I am more than betrayal. I am more than lost. I am resilient, strong, and growing. I am unstoppable, and I will never let anyone take that away again. The journey had been painful, yes, but it had also been transformative. I had learned who I was, what I valued, and how to rise above the cruelty of others. I had turned ashes into something real, lasting, and powerful. And as the city continued its hum, I smiled, feeling a deep sense of closure. I had faced the storm, and I had won. Not just against Alex, but against every doubt, fear, and insecurity that had ever tried to hold me back. For the first time, truly, I felt free. The first rays of sunlight filtered through my office window, casting a warm glow over the city. It felt symbolic, like the start of something entirely new. I sipped my coffee slowly, savoring the quiet moment, the peace I had fought so hard to achieve. Mara walked in, smiling. "Good morning, Sonia. Ready for the day?" I set my cup down and nodded. More than ready. Today isn't just another day of work. It's a reminder of how far we've come, of what we've built, and the strength it took to get here. She nodded knowingly. "And Alex, you're okay with everything being over? No lingering bitterness?" I smiled faintly. He's a part of the past. I've forgiven myself more than him. That's what matters. His downfall was natural. Mine was deliberate. And now, I can focus on what truly counts: growth, happiness, and the life I choose to live. The office phone rang, interrupting our conversation. I picked it up, my voice calm and professional. "This is Sonia." A client's cheerful voice greeted me, confirming a new partnership that would expand our operations further. I smiled, feeling the thrill of achievement. "Excellent. We'll begin immediately. Thank you for trusting us." I hung up and looked out the window again. The city below was alive, full of endless possibilities. I thought about how far I had come, from a woman broken by betrayal to someone who had built an empire, reclaimed her power, and redefined herself entirely. Ethan appeared in the doorway, holding a folder. "Morning. I've got the latest expansion proposals ready. We can discuss strategy for entering international markets." I waved him in. "Perfect. Let's do it. This is about growth, about building something sustainable, something better than anyone imagined. Every lesson we've learned, every step we've taken, it's all led to this moment." Mara leaned over, whispering softly, "You're changed so much, Sonia. Not just the businesswoman, but the woman too. Stronger, wiser, and happier." I chuckled softly. "Happier, yes. I've learned that true strength isn't about revenge or proving someone wrong. It's about reclaiming yourself, living fully, authentically, without fear. That's freedom." As I walked to my office balcony, the wind brushing against my face, I saw people starting their day below, busy, hopeful, unaware of the battles I had fought and won. A sense of peace settled over me, tempered with excitement for what was yet to come. Suddenly, Mara nudged me gently. "Sonia, your husband." I turned surprised. "Husband?" She smiled knowingly. "The man you've met over the past months, the one who supported you quietly, without drama, without expecting anything in return. He's waiting outside. I think it's time." A rush of warmth filled me. The past had been painful, yes, but it had also led me here, to someone who truly respected me, valued me, and saw me for who I was. I took a deep breath and walked down to meet him. He stood waiting, hands in his pockets, a soft smile on his face. When our eyes met, I felt a calm certainty. This was right. This is where I was meant to be. "You're early," I said teasingly, though my heart raced. He chuckled softly. I didn't want to be late for the start of something perfect. We walked together through the city streets, sunlight warming our faces. It felt simple, natural, beautiful. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, worried about betrayal or revenge. I was simply living. He stopped suddenly, taking my hand in his. "I've seen you grow, fight, and rise, and through it all, you've remained incredible. Strong, brilliant, and kind. I want to be by your side, not to fix you, but to support you, to share this life with you." I squeezed his hand, feeling a mixture of relief, happiness, and love. "You already have. You supported me in ways no one else could. And I choose to walk this path with you. Together." We continued walking, laughter and soft conversation blending with the morning bustle. I felt alive, free and untouchable. My past, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the struggles, had shaped me, but it did not define me. That evening, back at my office, I reflected quietly. I had reclaimed everything that was taken from me: my confidence, my power, my reputation, and my happiness. And I had gained something even more valuable: a partner who truly respected me, a team that believed in me, and the knowledge that I could rise above any challenge. I whispered to myself softly, a smile touching my lips. I survived betrayal. I rebuilt. I rose. I loved. And now I live. Fully, freely, powerfully. This is my dawn, my life, and my story. The city shimmered below like 1,000 tiny lights, each one a promise of endless possibilities. I had faced the storm, survived it, and emerged stronger than ever. And as I watched the horizon glow with the colors of a new day, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: nothing and no one can ever take away my strength, my happiness, or my life again.